I guess it's also important to be realistic. That is to say that things seem sometimes not so much to get inevitably better, but to oscillate between times of hope and achievement and times of anger or despair. I'm old enough to have remembered moments of great exhilaration in this culture, perhaps not universally shared, but widely shared. Jackie Robinson in 47, the United States Army in 48, Brown v. Board of Education, 54, Rosa Parks, Civil Rights Act, 64, Voting Rights Act, 65, Martin Luther King's Nobel Prize address, but followed by Martin Luther King's assassination. And the events of the last few weeks, months, and to be very specific, of the murders of young black men in all over the country. And this is not a new pattern of homicide. This is newly available because of media. And perhaps the media, as it were, eats it up because it's violence. And as I was saying to somebody in a conversation about this before we began the formal part of the program, editors will admit to you that they live by the following credo: if it bleeds, it leads.
Yep.
So the inherent tragedy of these events is heightened and probably distorted out of all of its conceivably reasonable context by our current media environment. So I want to be as optimistic and as active as possible. I want to share in the notion that conversations of this sort that involve increasing numbers of people, while they may not be our solution, the only solutions we have are those that are available to us. And so not to attempt the difficult would be to consent to the impossible. And that seems to me to be a recipe for moral disaster.
Absolutely. Wow.
Buck, which would bring it around to a kind of a closing of the circle. In the mid-1940s, James Michener, her neighbor and ally in some of her progressive hell-raising, produced a very successful musical, one of their many successful musicals with Richard Rodgers, South Pacific. And whether or not you know the play or the book from which it came or the musical, there's a song in it that Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to hate all the people your relatives hate. And Hammerstein, who was actually the lead on that particular song, said that he wrote that as a tribute to Pearl Buck.
Wow. Man. On that note, wow. Yes. Okay. Wow. Wow. You know, we said we would stop on time. We're about a minute over. But in closing, I want to thank our amazing panel, our amazing readers,